There's about $44 billion worth of gold at the COMEX in New York. That's about what it cost Elon Musk to acquire Twitter, which was a noble act, and it helps, but it's just one deck on the ship. If we want to end this insanity, we have to break the link between the gold and the dollar and free the monetary system and decentralize it, which means we're going to have to force hyperinflation.
I believe that true focus lies somewhere between rage and serenity. Would you mind if I...
Hey guys, Rafi here from the End Game Investor. And today I want to deal with a serious question. How do we convince the normies? How do we deal with the normies to convince them that collecting, stacking gold and silver is in their best interests and in the best interest of the world? There are a lot of facets to this corruption, to the corruption of society, that are becoming obvious to many different camps. There are a lot of people that are normie on one issue, but they see the corruption, they see the matrix on another issue. For example, you might have people that are very awake and very aware of the military-industrial complex and the fact that the planet might end because of this. I don't think it will. I don't think we're going to erupt into nuclear war, but at least there is a substantial risk of it, and there's no reason that I see why they are taking this risk, and it seems reckless. Other people understand the pharma industrial complex. Some people understand the educational industrial complex, the corruption of academia to the point where we are now trying to make the mutilation of children sound sophisticated and acceptable and tolerant. That is how corrupted our culture has become. There are enough awake people in the world that understand what is going on, that understand the corruption in whatever sector that they are looking at, but none of them have put it all together to determine where exactly the source of all this corruption is coming from. What is funding it? What is the source? As Brett Weinstein said, I'll give you this 1 minute and 22-second clip that I edited, and you'll understand what I mean, that he is awake, that he sees the corruption, but he's missing one thing.
Canadian Teachers Federations put out a gender-affirming classroom discussion booklet. How can we Canucks fight back against this?
I was screaming my head off about capture for 15, maybe 20 years. No, we're not talking about regulatory capture. We're talking about capture of the whole fucking thing.
Yeah.
The journalism, the universities, the regulators, the whole thing. Agencies. You ignore it for 20 years, right? Then the whole fucking edifice starts coming apart, right? Everything is in collapse because all of the authorities are corrupt and nobody knows anything, right? And so suddenly the speakeasies are now podcasts. Get it? Speakeasies are now podcasts. Okay, that's the only place where anybody says anything true anymore. The first thing you do is you realize you fucked up 20 years ago. We had two parties that were compromised by corruption, okay? And the point is, we could have purged the corruption at that point. We could have made corruption the central issue. You take care of these problems when they are small, because if you let evolution refine the corruption thing, it becomes insurmountable, and then you're dealing with collapse. And then people want to know what you do about collapse. And the answer is probably nothing. In Star Trek, when they dump the warp,
yes.
Yeah, they dump the warp core, right?
Yeah.
They don't dump the warp core because they've got a source for warp cores. They dump it because they don't have a fucking choice. The first thing you do is you dump the warp core. That's you pulling your kids out of school.
The schools are not the warp core. The schools are just another deck on the ship that is being assimilated by the Borg. If there is a military-industrial complex, it has to be funded. It's funded by the government. The government spends money. They end up with a deficit. And then the Federal Reserve, which issues the dollar, that institution prints the difference, hands it to the government, and then they go out on a military-industrial complex adventure. It's the same thing with big pharma. If you're talking about the educational industrial complex, you have government spending that funds public education, whether that's universities or public schools, and then political influence gets involved in the school and ends up being corrupted for the same reason, because money is flowing into the public schools, inflationary money is flowing into them, and garbage is coming out. The same thing that is corrupting the military-industrial complex, is corrupting the pharma-industrial complex, is corrupting the education-industrial complex and the political complex. It's all being funded by inflationary money. You cannot stop corruption by slowing down the spread of the Borg on a specific deck of the ship. The corruption is the money itself. And as long as the fiat dollar that can be inflated at will by the Federal Reserve to siphon off resources from the people and give it to the government to fund whatever they want, the corruption will grow. But there is one way to stop it all. You have to understand where the dollar's value comes from. People say, even gold bugs say, even Austrian economists who I think are wrong say that we are off the gold standard, that the dollar is no longer on the gold standard, but that is not true. The gold standard is the exchange rate between dollars and gold. Right now, that is about $1,930. That is the source of all their ability to inflate the money supply and spend it on whatever they want and corrupt anything that they spend it on. If we want to end this corruption, we've got to cut off the funding at the source. It comes from the exchange between the dollar and gold. All you have to do to eject the warp core to end the corruption is we've got to close the gold window, and that will end all of the inflationary finance, because that means that the dollar is no longer a functioning gold substitute and cannot buy anything anymore. Ejecting the warp core means you eject your ability to continue to travel with the system that you are currently using. And it is painful and it is dangerous, but it is the only way to end this corruption. It has to end through hyperinflation. That will end the funding of the military-industrial complex. It will end the funding of the pharma-industrial complex. It will end the funding of the educational-industrial complex that is encouraging our children to mutilate their own bodies. One of the big problems is that the gold and silver community seem to be obsessed with cryptocurrency, but they do not understand that cryptocurrency is just another derivative of the dollar. It must be, because prices must go into the past, and Bitcoin is based on the dollar, exchangeable for the dollar, which is exchangeable for gold. It goes in that temporal chain. Once the dollar is no longer exchangeable for gold, Bitcoin and all cryptocurrencies by extension will become worthless. Instead of using Bitcoin to try to increase your dollar holdings, the gold and silver community must unite and stop this nonsense with Bitcoin and focus its energy on waking up people that understand different parts of this corruption and focus them on the source of it all, which is the dollar's exchangeability with gold, which can be broken if we all buy gold and silver together. Especially with the billionaires' help, we can do this. If you're going to have a country lose weight, you can't have it filled with candy stores. If you're going to have a country stop acting insane, you can't have it filled with an inflationary monetary system that the government can pay off any part of it that they want and drive people nuts. We need to restart Silversqueeze. We need to get the billionaires that understand the corruption, and we need to get them to buy gold and silver. And by doing so, by stacking physical ounces in your safe or at a private vault somewhere or wherever it might be, by doing that, you are not only saving your family and saving your purchasing power and making it a lot easier for your family to go through a hyperinflationary period, you are actively breaking the funding for all the corruption that is occurring in society today. That is the warp core, and that is what we have to eject.
This is not about revenge.
Liar!
This is about saving the future of humanity!
Jean-Luc, blow up the damn ship!
There's about $44 billion worth of gold at the COMEX in New York. That's about what it cost Elon Musk to acquire Twitter, which was a noble act, and it helps, but it's just one deck on the ship. If we want to end this insanity, we have to break the link between the gold and the dollar and free the monetary system and decentralize it, which means we're going to have to force hyperinflation. The thing is, this is going to happen anyway. It is inevitable. What we are trying to do, what we should be trying to do, is speed it up.
Jack, please! This track 10 heads. Jack, come on, you gotta get off this train. This is crazy.
There's a curb ahead. I'm gonna speed it up.
Make it jump the track.
This is really stupid. Jack, please, you can still jump.
Because the longer that they can leech resources by printing dollars that still have a gold exchangeable value, the more they can corrupt the system, and the more it's going to drive all of us insane and endanger our children, endanger the next generation, and endanger the entire planet with possible nuclear war. We need to restart Silversqueeze. We need to get the people that understand the different aspects of the corruption to focus their energies on the money itself and end this system of systematic corruption. True focus lies between rage and serenity. So we need to do this with a rage, and we need to do it serenely with serenity, focused and calm and methodical. That is their weak spot. That is what they will not censor, because even they, where they draw their corruption from, even they do not understand it. When I say gold is money, I mean that literally right now. This is not a religious principle. It is a literal statement of truth. When you trade a dollar to buy whatever it is that you need, you are trading the gold value of that dollar. That gold value is set by the gold futures market, and that is what has to be rated. Once you do that, you eject the warp core, and then yes, you do have to rebuild. There are consequences for this system of corruption, and there are consequences for inflation. Those consequences we will have to suffer one way or the other. And so my proposal is we speed up the process and deal with those consequences now rather than later, after the corruption has gotten so much worse and who knows how many children have been maimed because of it. This is Rafi of the Endgame Investor. If you enjoyed this video, then do your part and keep stacking. Do it wisely, do it methodically, do it with a rage, and do it with serenity and focus.
So come on, try again.
Forget about the normies. Just try to explain to people that whatever part of the system is corrupted that they hate, it is because of inflation that is funding it. That is funding the corruption, and that is leading to the destruction of the system that they see the corruption in. And focus them at the base of the pyramid, which is gold and silver. We have enough people. We don't have to convince anyone else. We just got to get them focused all on the same target and fire.
I'm taking command of the fleet. Target all of your weapons onto the following coordinates. Fire at my command.
Sir, the coordinates you have indicated do not appear to be a vital system.
Trust me, Data. Fire.
And every ounce that you stack is another ounce that the government does not have and hollows out their system of inflationary corruption that is destroying us all. Let's speed it up, jump the tracks, and end this for good.
Well, then I guess there's only one thing left to do.
What's that?
Win the whole fucking thing.
Let's cut through the crap, Vaughn. I only got one thing to say to you.
Strike this motherfucker out.